Hey everyone, my name is Andrea. Thanks so much for being here tonight. I am really excited to make two dishes for you and hopefully one day with you. Um, the first dish that I'm going to start is my quinoa vegetable soup. I have sold it retail, I have sold it for personal chef clients. It's a really versatile soup, it's an incredibly healthy soup. And first thing I did was I took some red quinoa and I prefer the organic red quinoa. And the first thing I do is I rinse it off in cold water because there is sometimes saponin that can give it a little bit of an off flavor or an off taste. It's not bad, it just affects the flavor a little bit. So I just rinse that under cold water for maybe 30 seconds. And that's the first thing I do. I kind of let that sit for a moment. I like to start off almost making my own vegetable stock, but you can certainly purchase vegetable stock as well if you like. So I just start off doing a little bit of a small dice on some fresh carrot. And I'm not sure if you can see it from where you folks are, they're in virtual lands, but I do not peel my carrots. The reason why I don't peel the carrots is because the peel actually has a lot of nutritional value, and so peeling it basically just makes the carrot look a particular way. But you're getting rid of a lot of nutrition. A lot of our natural fruits and vegetables have quite a bit of nutrition in the skin, so that's why I leave it on. And you can do a rough chop on this. You do not have to get technical with your knife cuts by any stretch of the imagination. So you want to gather up about a half a cup of diced carrot. Next thing I do is I do the same thing with an onion, just a rough chop or a dice on it. If I can get the peels off, of course. There we go. So a lot of folks don't know the origins of quinoa. It actually did originate around Lake Titicaca in South America. What I like so much about quinoa is that it is one of the few whole protein plants that exists. In other words, it has the same compounds as animal protein has in a nutritional sense. So that works out really well for those of us who are trying to stick to our traditional foods, those of us who are trying to, maybe choose a healthier diet in our day-to-day, whatever it might be. And then also, for me as a professional chef, I do find that a lot of clients really do enjoy that full feeling, especially if they're on a vegan diet. And it really, they're much more satisfied with their meal when I incorporate quinoa, or if they're asking me for tips and tricks on, how to switch up their diet. And by no means am I a registered dietitian or a nutritionist. These are just things that I know about our traditional foods. So I'm going to walk this on over to a little soup pot that I have going. I'm going to start sauteing these vegetables. All right, so I talked a little bit about the quinoa. Two of the other main components that are going into the soup are heirloom, or heritage, I should say, red corn from Ramona Farms down in Arizona, as well as I have some brown peppery beans from Ramona Farms in Arizona as well. The reason why I like these, not only because I'm supporting, indigenous agriculture, these peppery beans sustain the olotums, and there's 3 bands in that tribe. For folks not familiar with the olotums, it has sustained them since the very beginning. of their presence in this world. And so it's really nice because the potassium is very, very high. The carbohydrates are much lower than in, a lot of beans that you'll find otherwise, like black beans, pinto beans, much higher in carbohydrates as opposed to the tepary beans that are lower in carbohydrates. So any folks who are, being conscientious with their carbohydrate intake or, be conscientious because maybe there's diabetes that runs in the family or you do have diabetes, this is a really nice option. It is a costlier bean than your black and pinto beans that you're going to find in the grocery stores or, maybe get at a food bank. But if this is something that's within reason for you, the health benefits really are fantastic. The red corn, it has a much, much different flavor. It has a much more savory flavor than, your store-bought yellow and white corn that you find in the summertime around here.
And Andrea, just 1 second. It looks like we had one participant start sharing their screen. So I believe that's Wayne. Go ahead and make sure you are not sharing your screen. All right. I believe we're back. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Andrea. Sorry about that interruption.
No, no worries. So I do believe that our backup piece of equipment is hot and ready to go. So I'm going to head over there, start sautéing the onions and the carrots, and then we'll add some greens and some stock, and we'll just keep talking about this dish before we move on to the salad for tonight. And, So what's nice about starting off the soup this way is, in a sense, you're making your own vegetable stock. You can, of course, purchase some vegetable stock, or something that I like doing is, because I do cook with a lot of vegetables on a day-to-day basis, I take the scraps of most of my vegetables, broccoli, onion, carrot, peppers, whether they're hot or sweet bell peppers. I take the scraps and I put them in a gallon zip bag and I throw them in the freezer until it's full. Sometimes I'll do stock with one bag. Sometimes I'll collect 2 or 3 bags and I'll make a large batch of vegetable stock. And I basically just cover it with water, put the lid on it, set the temperature really low, have all those beautiful vegetable scraps simmering in water for maybe half a day. I can do plenty of other things around the house while that's going on. It does take time to make, but it's not something that you have to watch. And if you're like me, I like to get just a little bit of color, a little bit of caramelization on my vegetables because it does add to the flavor of the finished dish. You only need about a tablespoon or 2 of oil, depending on how big of a batch you're making. The batch that I'm making tonight, you'll get about a quart of soup out of it. So it's really nice if it's part of your dinner that'll feed 4 people. Everybody gets a cup of soup. Maybe you have a sandwich with it. Maybe you have salad. Whatever it is that you're serving with your soup, it's a really nice start to the meal. I've had this soup as my entire meal before. That's one of the huge benefits of having that quinoa in there, is that protein is really satiating and really nourishing. So I'll let that hang out for another moment. I mentioned earlier that I went ahead and rinsed off the quinoa under cold running water. And something I like doing, which again adds to the flavor of the overall dish, is I like to toast the quinoa a little bit. You might get a few seeds that pop, and that's okay. You try and use every, 10 seconds or so to make sure that the grain doesn't burn. The other really nice thing about this food is that you can change what goes in here with the something. Carrots and onions are readily available, of course. Um, but if you want to, put some winter squash in there like I am tonight, you can dice up some winter squash, or you can use a box grater and get it much, much smaller. If you're doing this in the summertime, I really like using zucchini. All right, that's looking pretty good to me. If you are using vegetable stock, if you're adding vegetable stock, give it a good shake, even if it's homemade, give it a stir. There's always going to be some sediments that are in there. Now, once you're at this point, you're going to give this about 20 minutes or so to simmer. You're going to see the quinoa turn a little bit white, and it's only because it's cooking all the way, so you're going to see like a little ring of white, and you're going to see the grain open up a little bit. That's how you know that the grain is hydrated, it's tender, and totally cooked. While this is simmering, I'll answer more questions if there are any questions in the chat. I'm also going to cut up a little bok choy. That's what I chose to put in there as a green. Otherwise, a lot of times I really like putting dandelion greens in here, which, as most of you probably know, is one of our pre-colonial plants. Let's swing it over. So this is just a little bok choy baby bok choy, I should say, that I picked up in the grocery store the other day. It's a fairly reasonable price depending on where you get it. If you're a big fan of H Mart and a couple of the other Asian markets here around Denver, that's a good place to get this. And all of these vegetables were washed ahead of the demo just for some time saving. Again, you don't have to get fancy with your knife cuts. It's about 3/4 of a cup or so of greens that will go into the soup as soon as the quinoa is done cooking. This cooks really quickly, even the thicker white part of the bok choy. And then certainly if you're using only leafy greens, maybe kale, maybe dandelion greens, spinach if that's your jam, then obviously it's just a leafy green that's going to wilt. A lot of times I actually take the soup off of the stove and I stir in my leafy greens from there. About halfway through the cooking time is when I like to add my corn and tepary beans too. Those I actually cooked ahead of time. The reason being they take about 30 to 45 minutes to cook from a dried state. I soak them overnight to help hydrate them. And the cook time is, again, after you soak them in the refrigerator for the day or overnight like I did, it still takes about 30 to 45 minutes to cook, just from a timing standpoint. that in your mind. Do we have any questions in the chat that I can answer for folks?
I believe Samuel already answered the question about the recipe, just about sharing it. Other than that, we don't have any questions right now. So just a reminder to everybody, make sure you put your questions in the chat when they come up, and we'll address them as we go.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Yep.
So the beans that you brought and you said it would be more expensive, where would you find something like that?
You can find these temporary beans on the Ramona Farms website.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's information that I can make sure is in the email. Is that the farm where I get both of the corn and the beans is Ramona Farms, and they're based in Arizona. Yeah. And there are an Oodum farm as well, just for fun information. Something else that I really like about this recipe is if you don't have access to or prefer a different bean or corn, then by all means you can swap that out. If you like having canned products, you can absolutely drain off the water and use that. If you have family corn that you raise or that someone gives to you, you can absolutely make those substitutions. This soup can easily be made from the ingredients that are here to food donation centers, food banks, and everything in between.
And Andrea, you might have asked this, but I saw these pop up. I believe they just asked, can you repeat what type of corn you're using?
Oh yes, this is heritage red corn from Ramona Farms. And I super geek out on this corn because it's just so beautiful. Like, look at the striations, little stripes on there. One of our original corns in this on this continent. They even break up beautifully. Look at the inside. Like, your store-bought corn does not look like this.
That almost looks like a hominy.
Yeah, a lot of people will ask me if this is hominy.
And that's just corn in there?
This is just corn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just corn. Yeah, gorgeous.
And another question.
Yeah.
Where can you buy dandelion greens?
I have actually found dandelion greens in natural grocers. Yeah, I don't know if it's in all of the stores, if it's popular in all of them, but I live up in Arvada, and I always am able to find dandelion greens there. Contacting local farmers is another good route to go. I believe Rebel Farms in Denver used to, hopefully still does, grow dandelion greens. That was one of my main vendors for quite a while.
Awesome, thank you.
For sure. All right. I'm gonna go check out this soup. We're probably about halfway with the soup, so I'm gonna pop in the corn and the temporary beans. So, and real quick, here's a fun little thing to know about these temporary beans. Not all of them will hydrate perfectly. So when you see the smaller, dried out looking pieces of bean, these are not hydrated. These, for whatever reason, aren't taking on water. So I actually get rid of them. You want your temporary beans to look like this. And this is specifically the brown temporary bean. Ramona Farms does have brown, white, and black temporary beans. And they all have slightly different flavor profiles, which is kind of fun to play with. Give it a quick stir. Make sure everything's warming up and hydrating nicely and evenly. I'm really making the folks who have these cameras work. I keep moving around like I'm in a regular kitchen. Just gonna pop this bok choy into a separate container, make it a little easier to get over to the counter. Right. Then I'll talk to you a little bit about what's coming up next after the soup is ready. Through the magic of television, we have squash. This is specifically Cory squash that I've already roasted. I just put about a teaspoon or so of oil. I usually use sunflower oil or olive oil from Sika Hills, which is a Yucca de Winton Nation owned olive grove out in California. A pinch of chili powder, your choice. I personally use Mexican red. And then right as they're coming out of the oven, and this will be in the recipe instructions in the packet that you'll all receive a little bit later on. As it's coming out of the oven, usually do about 375 for between 30 and 40 minutes. Seems to be the magic time frame. I brush them with a little bit of maple syrup. And so that way we're getting a little bit of sweet, a little bit of savory. It's also a really great way, if you have a finicky kiddo, it's a really great way to, lightly coerce them into eating their vegetables. Really light coat, it does not take much. Right. The last thing I'm going to do for the soup is I'm going to peel a little bit of winter squash, and this is also a little bit more Cory squash that I found at the market yesterday. Because I like that Three Sisters vibe. So I have squash, beans, and corn in the quinoa soup. I really, really love the foods and the culture of all the different indigenous nations all over Turtle Island. And so as a very, very proud Andina, I like blending ingredients from my part of the world with ingredients here in Indian country and what we now know as the U.S. This is my little workhorse of a box grater. I think I found it in the Goodwill once upon a time. It served me well. Friendly reminder, watch those fingers. And because I have this shaved down, this is also going to cook very quickly. And I do like the almost raw texture of these kind of squashes. So I'm actually just going to pile this on and add them at the same time as the greens. If that kind of texture is not your jam, by all means, add it sooner. Let it cook a little bit longer if you like a softer texture. And we're going to swing on over. Cool. All right. So this is starting to look nice. Nice and hearty. So you'll see this is almost the consistency of a chili, just because I've put so much into this. I like going vegetable heavy, especially in the winter time, because I feel like a lot of us forget to eat as many vegetables in the winter as in the summer. You know, we just see it growing. We see it at the markets. We see it everywhere. And then we get into winter, and a lot of folks stop at potatoes and squash. Now, don't get me wrong, potatoes and squash is my jam. As an Andina, I can sit down and eat an entire bowl of roasted potatoes with some, you know, nice finishing salt and some olive oil on it, and I am a happy camper. That has been my entire meal before. So I'm just going to give that another 5 minutes or so, and then everything will be cooked all the way through. You can taste it for seasoning. If you want to add a little bit of salt, you can. If you want a little sumac in it, you can add sumac. I really like doing sumac for my heart conscious clientele. It fools you into thinking that there's salt in the dish. Sumac you find in a lot of Middle Eastern cuisine, and so it has that citrusy flavor to it, and it sort of tricks your mouth into thinking that you're getting a lot of not a lot, but that you're getting salt in your food, and it's actually very heart healthy for you. Otherwise, chilies, I love chilies. Go nuts. The beauty of this soup is that it's almost a catch-all soup. You can put whatever you want in there. That's what's so nice about the changing seasons as well. You know, every couple of months you have new and different vegetables that are coming into harvest, and you can try them in the soup. Does anybody want to taste it on camera? Smells good. Oh, yeah, I'll do it. Very good. Thank you. That's why you do this. Right.
So you still leave it on the same temperature, even though the grains are going to get leafy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna just
dive in there.
Just gonna take some of this. I want some grains. Okay, don't too much. Yeah, very good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, and the colors are really vibrant. It's like an edible landscape to me. You know, I can see all the different vegetables. I know where the vegetables came from, and that's just a good feeling.
Andrea, that is very good.
Thank you. All right.
And we have a couple more questions that popped into the chat if you're ready for them, Andrea.
Absolutely.
If you could remind everyone where you're from. I know that was in your video, but hopefully everyone was able to hear it.
Oh yeah, I am Andina. I'm originally from the Andes of Venezuela. I was born in Caracas, but my indigeneity, I believe, and I say I believe because I'm adopted, so it's not 100% certainty, but we believe that my indigeneity is on San Cristobal, which is on the western Venezuelan border, sharing the eastern border with Colombia.
Awesome. And then I have another question. They said dandelions have a bitter taste to them. Is there a substitute, maybe something that is more mild?
I'm not a fan of the bitterness, you can go with spinach, you can go with baby kale. I recommend baby kale just because it's more tender, so it will wilt a lot faster in the soup. Otherwise, if you're going to get the Glaciano kale or the red kale, you just want to make sure you cut that spine. It almost looks like a really thick vein out of the center of it for the most part. Some folks don't like how fibrous it is. I have eaten that, but it doesn't, please everyone's palate. And just cut it really thin, really, really thin, almost like a ribbon is how thin you want to cut it, because it is when it's an adult green, it's a little bit tougher as opposed to the baby greens.
And last question, what did you put on the squash?
The roasted squash?
I believe so. And then they asked, is it called sumac? Not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Oh, sumac.
Sumac.
I didn't use sumac in tonight's recipe. Sumac is spelled S-U-M-A-C. It's also something that I foraged for. It was actually at the beginning of that video. But on the roasted squash for the salad, it's just a little bit of olive oil or sunflower oil, whatever it is that you have or prefer to use, really. Just about a teaspoon on each wedge. This is Kuri squash, Kuri. A little pinch of salt or sumac, if that's your style. A little pinch of New Mexican red chili powder, and then I put it in a 375-degree oven for about 35 minutes, give or take. Really until it's tender to the touch. Don't burn your fingers like I normally do. And then as it's coming out of the oven, I just give it a quick and light brush of maple syrup.
Perfect. And that's all the questions we have for now. And again, just remember to keep putting them in the chat and we will get to them.
Awesome, perfect. Okay.
And then we had one more come in, right, as I said that.
Yes.
Any book, websites, or group recommendations for learning how to forage in Colorado?
Honestly, I usually get foraging books that are specific to Colorado, or sometimes you can get some that are regional, very specific areas to Colorado. Just do a quick Google search or go to Amazon.com and type in Colorado foraging books, and you'll have to sift through some stuff, but you can read reviews, which I highly recommend. A lot of times on Amazon, you can read the first page or two, maybe a few more, to get a sense of what the book is going to be like. Some are a little bit more medicinal. Some are more uh, geared towards folks who like drying their own herbs for tea. Some lean towards mushrooms. Some are exclusively for mushrooms. So it really depends on what you'd like to forage for. What I'll do is I will send the folks here a list of a couple of the books that I like to use for learning how to forage myself. And I'll make sure that that goes into the email, the follow-up email that also has the recipes.
Perfect. Thank you.
You bet. All right, this next dish is going to go pretty quickly because I've already cooked the squash. Again, this is some curry squash, seasoned it with a little bit of olive oil, New Mexican red chili powder, pinch of salt or sumac if you'd like, and then roasted that in the oven. Did a quick little baste of maple syrup. And by all means, you can leave it in the oven after you baste it. It'll kind of give it almost like a glazed ham. That's not an appropriate analogy, but it's kind of like a glazed ham. It'll bake on. It'll candy a little bit when that sugar cooks. Oops. So it's a super simple salad. I like to have fun with my menu names. Sometimes I get cute. Sometimes I get ironic. I don't know if you folks have ever heard of a wedge salad. It's a very, very European. It's a very uninspired salad. It does not have a whole lot of nutritional value because it's literally a wedge of iceberg lettuce, which I call nothing but crunchy water. I don't know what the nutritionals are on it, but it's basically crunchy water. I like to take some super greens or, dandelion greens. Again, if that's too bitter, no shame in that game. You can use kale. You can use any of the mixed greens that you can get in clamshells at the store, like I did. Arrange them over top of your roasted squash. And again, I like tying in the Three Sisters, like doing a little bit of this heritage red corn because it has so much flavor to it, and it really does have more nutritionals than the yellow and white corn that you get here in the grocery stores. Some more tuppery beans while trying to avoid those ones that didn't get dehydrated or that didn't get hydrated. And then this is that really nice olive oil from Sika Hills. Just do a little drizzle around the plate because it looks pretty. You do not have to get restaurant chef fancy. And then this is also an elderberry balsamic vinegar that I got from Sika Hills as well. Now, they're the olive grove. They produce the olive oil. They do not produce the balsamic, but an indigenous business does produce that for them on their label. Then a little pinch of sea salt. Again, you can sub sumac. And then you have what I like to call the original wedge. And it looks super pretty, and it's super, super, super nutrient based. And again, there's a little bit of sweetness from the elderberry. There's a little bit of sweetness from the maple, and then there's natural sweetness in the squash as well. I'm all about tricking those kiddos into eating their vegetables.
Another chat in the chat box. What farm is the olive oil from?
Sika Hills. It's S-E with an accent over the E. A-L. And all of the vendor information, I'll make sure is in that email as well. Links to the websites, all of it. Make it nice and easy. I really appreciate everyone joining me tonight. Hopefully this was fun. Hopefully when you folks get the email with the recipes in there, you try it out. And I hope you try it out throughout the year. I hope you try different vegetables and, figure out what it is that you like, what your family likes, or whoever it is that you're sharing a meal with. So very much appreciated. Love working with you guys. And stay safe out there and have a great night.